Hello there, wherever you are, whenever you are, and whoever you are. It's me, Addison, your favourite friendly furbolg, who hangs around the internet talking about tabletop RPGs, comic books, manga, Magic the Gathering now apparently. That's a thing. So yeah, it's me, Addison. I hope you're safe and I hope you're well. And today we are on our second episode of the third season, where we now have, if you're on YouTube, this cool talking head format, which is kind of a bit sloppy at the moment, but as I get through it, we'll figure it out. And today I'm joined by my guest, ThatGamerPriest, aka Father Ben, Benjamin Wallace, all the way from the Americas. Isn't the internet a wonderful thing?
Yeah, it
And
is.
we're going to be talking about his and his team's newly released game, Broken, a tragic romance role-playing game. We're going to talk about it because I really enjoy the premise. So yeah, Ben, how about you introduce yourself, let the people know who you are and why you're here.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much, Edison. I really appreciate it. I appreciate giving me the space to be here to meet folks.
No,
And it is really fun to be able to talk to someone so far away by the power of the internet. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm Ben. I go by that gamer priest on social media, and I am the co-founder of the All Ports Open Network. I'm a gaming hobbyist enthusiast for 20 some years. I am also an Episcopal priest. So, hey, you're in the UK, right?
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the Episcopal Church is essentially Anglicanism, the Church of England, but in the United States. So we don't have the Queen, but we have all the other trappings of the Church of England, but here in the United States, and that's sort of our legacy. So I'm an Episcopal priest, and I've been a TTRPG enthusiast for, as I said, 20 some years. I was like a forever GM for a long time. In 2017, we founded a podcast and streaming network called the All Puts Open Network. And so I've been in TTRPGs like in the industry since then. So what's that? 5 years or so. And in the last year, we kind of had already always planned this, but we kind of made it happen now. In the last year, we finally have got our TTRPG publishing wing of our company, Apon, off the ground and moving. And that is Apon Games. So we're starting to publish games, and we're really excited about it. And yeah, so I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about All Ports Open. Excited to talk about my game that I wrote, Broken, a tragic romance game.
Yeah, and I think that the game itself, just as a bit of a preamble, I really like the concept. I think it's a
Thank you.
really interesting, like possibly like really harrowing thing to like
Mm.
base a game off of. So I want to get into that in a bit, but first I'd like to talk to you about like All Ports Open. Um,
Yeah, sure.
so this just like you and your buddies like coming together one day in the pub and going, "Yo, we could make stuff," or is this like a plan thing? Is it like a family thing? Is it like you've said yourself that you're a priest? Is this a church thing? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so in 2017, or it was around then that some of us. So I was actually, I guess the full story is that back at that time, myself and a few other friends of mine were living in an intentional community at my church. We were living together in community and doing ministry at the church. That included two other guys that one of them served as our theologian in residence. He has a PhD in theology, and the other one was a poet who also was our community coordinator at the church. And we were all gaming enthusiasts and hobbyists. And we had gone to the first PAX Unplugged. That's for folks who don't know, Penny Arcade Expo. That's their board game and TTRPG con that they
Yeah.
do in Philadelphia. And I'm in the Philadelphia area. It's local to us. I've been like going to PAX cons for years. And so we went to the first PAX Unplugged and just had a really awesome experience. It was in some ways like my personal kind of. I had been. Do I need to be worried about that?
I'm just having a look and seeing uh, what's happened. Is Craig's crashed by those things? Ah, no, not Craig. Craig. Uh, join.
Now recording.
Hopefully he's back. Let me just see if that recaptures. That should be working now. Sorry about that, folks. How these things go. You get technical issues every now and then.
Oh yeah.
So, hopefully, Craig will recover that. If not,
Yeah.
I can always rip the audio from the video.
Sure.
So hopefully, anyway.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Should I keep going? Should I just keep going?
yeah, just keep going.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we went to PAX Unplugged. I had been like, and I had done a podcast called No Avatars Allowed, which was a video game and theology podcast with Joshua Wise, who's my APON co-founder. We had done that years and years before, like in the earlier days of podcasting. And we had done that for a while. It had stopped for a period of time. And then we wanted to bring it back, but we wanted to like kind of focus less on video games with all of our podcasts and streams and focus more on tabletop role-playing games. Going to PAX Unplugged kind of reinvigorated our interest in sort of being a part of the hobby in a more active way. And so the three of us made a game plan to found a company, to get involved in making actual plays and shows that talk about TTRPGs and video games. And kind of incorporating the fact that we are like a particular kind of religious person. We are people that are interested in we happen to be progressive or liberal Christians. There's like conservative Christians in the hobby out there, and we wanted to present an alternative like perspective on that. But we're not particularly like religious. Like our network is not really religious, and we did know Avatars Allowed again for a little while, which was our theology video game podcast, so that was coming out. But like just the fact that I'm a priest and I do TTRPGs, like we just wanted to like be in the space and be like, yeah, I'm a priest and I'm into TTRPGs and I'm not bigoted or awful or off-putting, I hope. So, just like that alone was something we kind of wanted to be the face of our kind of ethos for our network was that the reason we called it All Ports Open was that all viewpoints, all perspectives, all philosophies, all ways of thinking were welcome and wanted to be considered. And we wanted everyone to feel like their viewpoint could be welcome in our network. So when we first started, that was sort of our ethos, sort of our perspective. We started doing actual play podcasts. Eventually we started doing streams. We started writing our own games. And that's kind of the birth of, so the poet of the three of us who founded the network together, he left the network pretty quickly, like within the first several months of us getting off the ground. And so ever since then, it's just been Josh and myself. We no longer all work at the church together. We've kind of gone into our lives have taken us different directions. I'm still the priest at my church, so I'm still doing that as my day-to-day work and ministry. But yeah, so I also co-host as part of our network. I co-host a couple of shows I want to just mention because they kind of relate directly to Broken. One of them is Pod of Love, which I co-founded with my spouse, my partner, Melissa, my wife. We started Pot of Love around that same time, 2017, playing relationship and romance actual plays. And we've done 2 seasons, and that's sort of where I got really, really into the romance TTRPG genre. And that is kind of one of the things that is hugely influential on me writing the game Broken. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is that I also host a stream on Monday nights called Holy Happy Hour Batman. It's Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know what that time that is where you are.
I couldn't tell you either, so...
But 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I talk to like heroes of the gaming and geek world, like a lot of indie designers, people you might know out there, like Alex Roberts, who created Starcross, was my first guest on the show. Meg Baker, famous for making Apocalypse World with Vince, her husband, and lots of other awesome people. Ebadiah Ravishal, who created Dread, was on the show. Lots of really awesome guests. I've had lots of my like personal heroes.
As in Dread the Jenga game, the one that is used as
correct.
I fucking love that game. I want to play that
game. It's amazing.
So bad.
You should. It's the best. It's one of my favorite games. So I have had a lot of those people on the show, and we talk about spirituality and philosophy and worldview and all kinds of stuff like that with designers. And so I do that on Mondays. And so like I talk to designers, like very successful designers, very regularly, which is another huge influence on Broken, is being able to have the opportunity to do that. I see it as a blessing. Like I feel really lucky and fortunate.
I'm like here. Sorry, if you heard that cursor, but like I'm here like.
Oh, I'm fine. We curse on my shows all the time.
Cool. Wicked. Fucking hell. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here like, oh, this is this nice priest guy. And then you're like, oh yeah, I've had this person, this person, this person. I'm like, oh fuck, I've somehow wandered into a big deal here. What the fuck?
Well, I don't know about that, but I've been very fortunate to connect with a lot of awesome people on Holy Happy Hour, and yeah, kind of start to make a space in the industry. So that's kind of all ports open. We do a lot of streams now. Like we are stressing our APON games. So like two of our streams are playtests of a game called The Worst Days, which is a horror game about being young by my APON co-founder Josh. They've been playtesting that game for like 2 years or something crazy, and it's been refined into like the version it is now, which we feel really good about. And they have a stream every other Monday and every other Tuesday on Twitch. We've got a YouTube presence. We've got and the network puts out other things like we release a horror what is it called, not an actual play but a audio drama, sorry I spaced there for a second, called Weeping Cedars that Josh wrote, and I also host a Masks actual play podcast called Delinquent Comics. So we release a lot of content.
Yeah, I'm gonna
We've
say.
got a lot of people. Yeah.
How do you do the whole like being a priest thing and do all this?
Yeah.
Like, I can barely be a dad, be a husband, be a teacher, and like record my podcasts once the blooming. So I respect it, dude. I respect the hustle.
And I have 3 kids, so it is a lot of balancing. It's a balancing act. I'm in the middle of moving right now, so my life is a little chaotic, and I'm in the middle of moving and all that. I'm also like doing a crowdfunding campaign, like, and it's our second one. We just crowdfunded a game called The Hard Lessons in May, and we just finished that, and that was our first successful crowdfund. We used itch.io, and itch funded that game, and now we're moving on to the next one. So yeah, it's a lot of balancing. It's a lot of plate spinning. It gets a little hairy. It gets a little crazy, but I think the trick is that we love it. We're having fun. I love everything we do, and yeah, keeping the energy up can be tough. Feeling motivated can be hard sometimes. It can be easy to like lose sight of why you do these things when you're just really busy with it all the time. And so just finding ways, I just try to find ways to keep myself motivated. But I have a great family, a very supportive partner who does it with me with Pot of Love, and is working on the Broken crowdfunding with me. So, we can do a little bit of it together, which is helpful. And my kids love TTRPGs and games. My kids listen to our Delinquent Comics Masked Actual Play pod, even though it's not super kid friendly and we say fucking shit on it all the time. I'm like, oh, don't hear the adult words, kids. Pretend you don't hear the grown up words. And, but yeah, we're a big geek family over here.
Do you like pre-record it and cut it up, or is it like a thing that you do live? Like how
Delinquent Comics is a pre-recorded podcast with a lot of heavy editing, lots of music, sound effects, things like that. It's like a young teen superhero drama show.
Yeah.
And it's super fun.
Masks
I don't
does
get
look
to,
fun.
yeah.
Masks does look fun.
Yeah, Masks is a blast. It's one of my favorite Powered by the Apocalypse games. It's just super fun to play. I GM for that, and I think I do an okay job. I think I'm still Powered by the Apocalypse is a tough system to get really good at running. You have to really get it.
Yeah, I've looked at Powered by the Apocalypse for multiple projects. There's I don't know if you know the video game Persona, like.
Persona. I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Powered by the Apocalypse like hack of Persona.
Oh, cool.
I look at it all the time. I'm like, I could play that, and that would be dope. And I crack open like the PDF, and I'm like, I can't play that. That's my head hurts. Like,
yeah, it's a particular way of seeing role playing games. Powered by the Apocalypse is like, I talked to Meg Baker about this on my Holy Happy Hour show, and like it is a particular philosophy of tabletop role playing games. And if it's like you either speak that language or you don't, I feel like, and if you do, great, and you can run it and have a blast. If you don't, and I find even if you like really want to, and you're like us, and we do it, I've been running this podcast Delinquent Comics for over a year, and I still feel at times like I'm not sure if I quite get the flow all the time of the game. So it can be Powered by the Apocalypse can be a little challenging.
Yeah, but I think if it's as successful as you're saying, your kids love it. Like
My kids love it.
the mouths of babes are dangerous,
There
man.
you
Like
go.
they will tell you things you do not want to hear. Like I work with like teenagers. Like
Oh yeah.
obviously I don't know if your kids are teenagers, but I work with teenagers. They will tell you everything you do not want to know before they tell you something you want to know. So the fact that they enjoy it, that's really good for you. I was going to ask you the question of like,
Yeah.
is it but I feel like you kind of answered it, but we can rehash it as
Yeah.
well if you want. Because yeah, when you say like priest, like there
Yeah.
is like an instant like thing, and I don't know
Yeah.
if this is because of D&D's like umbrellaing of the TTRPG space, and like D&D being like the poster child. So to hear like oh, there are priests that play this game, and with the history of like satanic panic and everything and all that jazz, and I know that's not part of your like church's history, but just in general in America, like do you people find that weird? Like, do you people like kind of like challenge you on that or anything like that? Because
So
like
actually, I happen to be at a really cool parish that I would say there's a lot of interest. A lot of that stigma is gone. Like the satanic panic stigma, I think, is gone. There may be like evangelical and more fundamentalist versions of Christianity where it still exists. I don't know, but my church is just so far from that. Like, I don't
yeah,
even mean my congregation, but my denomination. The
yeah,
Episcopal Church, Anglicanism, is just so mainstream and so progressive that like it just I don't think it would even they would even conceive of it. I have lots of clergy friends who are gamers, but like my specific congregation, because of like you know the three of us working there for a long time, we're all gamers who founded this network together. I actually run a game club every single Saturday night since same year 2017. We founded it the same year as we founded the All Ports Open Network. We have a game club that meets every Saturday night at the church, and we play TTRPGs, we play board games, and it's 5 years going strong this summer. Actually, we're about to hit in 1 month. We'll be at our 5 year anniversary of doing. It's called Saturday Night Strategists, and we survived the pandemic because we met on Discord during the pandemic, and we kept going, and people kept in touch. We played games on Discord, on Roll20, on Tabletop Simulator, and it was hard. There were weeks when I really didn't want to play board games on Discord on Saturday, and it felt like draining. But I wanted the group to survive, and it did. And so, yeah, I've got a cool parish where some of my people, my older people, they don't get it, but they also don't care. They're like, yeah,
yeah,
okay, you do your thing, that's fine. We don't have any kind of negativity around it. If anything, like I have priest colleagues who are working with me to figure out like ways to use role playing games, like use D&D and other games to kind of mentor teens and like confirmation age teens. Like I have a friend who's in my diocese who is using it with his confirmands to do their confirmation class because the kids are all into role playing games. So they'll play D&D and then they'll talk about theology and they'll maybe incorporate some of the themes into their D&D game, things like that. Like I
yeah.
know some like D&D Bible studies that exist and things. And so, yeah, like I don't encounter the stigma very much. There, yeah, there's not a lot of it anymore. Even in the evangelical world, like if you go to cons in the US, you will see there are organizations that exist that are trying to evangelize in the geek space, in the TTRPG space. And that's also not me because I'm not like in that. That's not my form of Christianity either. Is
No,
that like very sort of evangelical thing?
like
Um,
conversion and stuff. Yeah, you're
yeah, exactly. So like that's kind of why we founded Apon because we kind of wanted to just be a different version of being people of faith in the scene. We wanted to be an alternative to like the Geek Church or whatever. Geek
yeah.
Church is an actual organization. I don't know if they still exist or not, but yeah. So that's sort of my experience with that.
No, that's amazing. Like I think it's admirable of you. Like I run the D&D club at my school, and it's
Nice.
and it's
That's awesome.
and it's one of the things that brings together kids who you wouldn't think of who would come together. They wouldn't come together naturally, and like I
Yeah.
think that's one of the best things about board games, video games, like TCGs, all that stuff, all that nerdy stuff,
Yeah.
is it builds
Yeah.
community. Even if there is already like one in your church, there's already a community that you've shepherded, for lack of a better word, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you've managed to do something else with them. And like in schools, there's all these sports clubs, but for those nerdy kids, those kids who want to come out their shell and be somebody else for an hour, um, it's great. And so
Yeah.
I can only commend you for surviving the pandemic as well.
Oh, it was tough. Oh, we did.
Um, the game club that I used to go to kind of didn't, like, there was, it
Yeah.
kind of fell apart, and that was sad. And like I understand like the importance of those spaces. So thank you for providing that for your congregation. That's really good. And I
Yeah,
know
we have a
I'm
lot
not.
of people, that move into our area, that they find us and they're new to the area. They don't know anybody, and we really provide like a way of like kind of meeting some people and coming into the area. And again, just for people listening, we do not like it is not an evangelical thing. We're not like hey, welcome to our game club. You should join our church and get baptized. Like, it's nothing like that. Like, people are welcome to come who they are, how they are, as they are, and be a part of the group. And we do have some people in our group who go to church with us. We have people who don't and would never. So we have a big spectrum, and so it's really cool when we can get everyone together at once. We did a beer festival at my church in 2019 before the pandemic, and all of our gamer people and all of our old church ladies and everybody were all there at the same time, and it was just so much fun to see all those people from a huge spectrum of life, right? Like,
Yeah.
we interacting and playing and having fun with each other, and it was just awesome.
No, that's amazing. I think
Yeah,
that's really admirable.
thanks.
So yeah, I'm not part of it, like, but I can recognize, like, as someone who has to do like community outreach and stuff
Yeah,
with my school.
yeah, right.
I genuinely believe that, like, if you can do, and people should be grateful when it's done well. So yeah, like, all ports open sounds really interesting. I'd love to maybe like come on and spit like philosophy and ethics with you at some point.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
come on Holy Happy Hour sometime. We can
yeah.
make
I
that happen.
like I said, I'm not particularly religious. I
Yeah,
respect it. I grew up in C of E, like
yeah,
Baptist church. Got christened. But when my brother did, quite later on, well, late in life, like I would have been about 10, 7. Like, I don't know. It's between 7 and 10, because I don't know if my brother was like 1 or 2 when he had it done.
gotcha.
I got it done a lot later on in life, and yeah, it was an interesting time. So let's get to the crux of everything then. Let's get
Sure.
to the meat and potatoes, as
Yeah,
the Midwesterners like to say, and let's talk about Broken, this tragic romance
yeah,
game. So how I want to do this is
yeah.
I kind of want to explain the game to you, how I've read it and how I've interpreted it, and then you can like correct me after I've
No,
done
I'm
it.
really
So
excited. That's awesome. That sounds fun. Yeah, I can't wait.
so Broken, in what I've read, is an artifact based um, game between two people. And what I mean by artifact is there are actual props that you can use, and basically it is the degradation and the breaking of a relationship to the point where its inevitable conclusion is either that it heals or it destroys completely. And throughout the game, you have like scenes where I don't think they're called scenes. I don't know if they're called scenes or moments. I might be mixing up my
Yeah,
games.
10. It's 10 scenes. Yeah,
Yeah, 10 scenes, and at the end of each scene, you break one of the artifacts to represent the like the barrier being crossed, or um the damage that is being done to the relationship, which can be romantic. It can be. I've seen that there's like platonic variations as well. And I think there's also like quite a lot of room for things like parents and stuff, and like parents and children. And yeah, it's just this really cool concept of, like, at the end of each of these scenes, you break one of the artifacts that is something important. Each player gets 5. It's something important to the other person or important to the relationship, and the breaking of that is fundamental in representing the damage being caused in this conflict that's happening. I think it's beautifully done. I don't know if that's correct or if I've like got
No,
all that right.
you just sold the game better than I ever could. You actually just used a phrase that I'm really excited about. You just kind of blew my mind. I hadn't thought about this word for it, and I want to use this now. I love it, which is artifact based. Like using that word artifact, that I've been kind of looking for a term to use like that, right? Because it's like it's a ritual game. I know there's like, ritual is one word I've used to talk about it, but there's a lot of talk in TTRPGs about keepsake games and the idea of keepsakes. And keepsakes are like where you make something, and at the end of the game, you have a keepsake that then you can take with you forever, theoretically. You have this keepsake now that you played this game. And keepsake games have been talked a lot about. And I've been thinking about how Broken is kind of the opposite of a keepsake game because you're breaking objects.
Yeah.
So I love this idea of thinking of it as like artifact based, like that these are artifacts and then you're breaking them. And then you have, like I have sitting here for our video viewers, one of my artifacts from a game I played of Broken. This is a Peter Cetera record, and it is broken in here because we broke it as part of the scene. And so what's cool about it is like it's in some ways like a keepsake. It's like now I have this artifact, this broken artifact that I can keep on my desk, and I'll always remember the final scene of this game of Broken I played with somebody where we slow danced to a Peter Cetera song in the 80s and we broke up. And it was really emotional and really tragic and sad. And like I have this record to remind me of that,
Yeah.
over there Broken. So anyway, I love that phrase artifact based. I want to start using that.
So my first question is,
Yeah.
where do you get the idea to break shit as part of as part of like a TTRPG experience or like just a gaming experience in general? Where do you go? Like, did you go to like a rec room and then go, this would be great on a small macro level or something? Like, I don't know. How does this work?
So if I can to answer that, I kind of have to tell the story of the game in general. Is that okay?
That's
I
perfectly fun.
To get to the answer to that, I kind of have to give the background on the game because I'm myself divorced. I'm the product of divorce. I was married. I married my high school sweetheart. Fell in love as a teenager. We, grew up, got married, had a baby, did all the things you're supposed to do, and it very much did not go as planned. Had a really painful divorce. And at the end of that, like, I always knew that I wanted in some way to be able to find some way to share my story, sort of tell my memoir of divorce in some way. So that's a little bit of background about my experience that led into the game. And then, as I said, I, in 2017, co-founded a podcast called Pot of Love with my, I got remarried. And in 2017, actually, we weren't even married yet. We were engaged. We founded Pot of Love. And we were playing relationship and romance games on the show. And one of my favorite game probably is Starcrossed by Alex Roberts, which uses a Jenga tower like Dread does. It's a game of star-crossed lovers, right? It's a tension game about star-crossed lovers. It's a really beautiful romance game. And I had this idea back then to say, well, what if if there's a relationship between Starcrossed and Dread, which is that they both are, one is romance and one is horror, but they're both about like tension and a little bit of fear and things like that. And I said, well, what if I took one of my other absolute favorite games that I adore, which is 10 Candles, and what if I created a romance game that was tragic in the way that 10 Candles is tragic? And I used that to not obviously tell my own divorce story, but to create the framework that people could tell all kinds of breakup stories and explore what it means to break up with somebody. And that could be, as you said, not even a romance relationship. It could be, there's space in it for all kinds of relationships, but create the framework to tell these kinds of stories. One of the things I like to say is that breaking up with somebody, it's not one big event. It is 10,000 little tiny cuts end up making a hemorrhage, right? That's what a breakup is. It's the little things over and over and over and over again. How can I capture that experience of
Yeah.
becoming disillusioned with your relationship with another person in a game that tells a tragic story of breaking up. And so I knew I wanted to do that. We were doing Pot of Love, we were doing romance games all of the time. So I was like thinking a lot about how I would do it. And again, so this has been sort of years in development. And I created a version of the game that wasn't quite right. Like it was close. It had a lot of the elements I wanted it to have, but something was missing. And one of our Pot of Love listeners, he kind of had put this bug in my head about trying to help people. He sort of suggested that if people had scene prompts, something to prompt their scene, it might help people feel more confident about setting a scene in a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of mulled over that for a long time. I already had a title for the game. I already wanted to call the game Broken. I knew that I wanted to call it that. And so I was mulling over how we might handle scene prompts. And it just kind of occurred to me that the answer was staring me right in the face with the title. I
Yeah.
thought, what if, you collect, as you said, these artifacts, these 10 objects that you can use as scene prompts, and then you break them at the end of the scene, um, to like because one of the things I wanted so much from the design of this game is I wanted the actual gameplay and the actual mechanics to embody the feeling of the game. So I wanted the themes of the game to not just be in the story and in the fiction, but also in the mechanics. That's like a design priority of mine in general for how I like to think about design of games. My
Yeah.
favorite teams use things. I love things in games. I like
Yeah.
games that little fiddly bits or objects or things that you can use
Yeah.
and touch and feel.
The
You know,
kinesthetic aspect of it, like the fact that like
yeah,
10 candles, you're lighting and blowing out the candles as like your doomsday clock, sort of thing.
exactly,
Um,
exactly. And in Starcross, you have the tower. And like there's lots of games like that that have like physical things you can interact with, and the idea of having it be tangible. When I realized I could do this, I could like, well, what if we broke physical objects? It just like a light bulb went off. It just was like lightning struck. I was like, this is it. This is the game. And it was like staring at me in the face the whole time because of the title and because of everything so I just realized that was the core of the game. That was the heart of the game, was collecting these objects and breaking them. And yeah, and then after I sort of solved that puzzle, that design puzzle, everything else fell into place.
yeah.
So the some of the stuff in the game, there's a ritual in the game for every scene. One person says part of the theme of the game is memory, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that people in relationship tend to not remember events the same way.
No, they
And in the
don't.
game, you're kind of looking back at your relationship, in the game. And so the ritual for every scene is one person says, remember when, and then sort of sets a scene.
Hmm.
Like, remember when we were crowned king and queen of the prom or whatever, of the, is it the prom
Yeah,
king? Yeah. Yeah.
we have it
Yeah.
now. It's a very American thing, but we have it now in the UK.
Okay. Yeah. So, remember when we were crowned prom king and queen? But the other person says, but you forgot about, and then adds some sort of twist or caveat to the scene. That ritual of remember when, but you forgot about, was in the game from the very beginning. That was one of our earliest design things for how the game was played, as well as the way you make characters in this game, which is instead of, and this is kind of foundational to how this game works too, instead of creating attributes for your character's attributes or traits, we call them in the game, are actually things that they're attracted to about the other person,
Yeah,
or things that you like about being in a relationship with them.
I
And
loved that
so, yeah,
idea. By the way, that was that like reading that,
thank you.
I was like, oh, so like, because I think one of the things I loved about that was that this game is inherently selfish in terms of like you remember the thing as you remember it, and
Yep.
like you break the thing that they love because you
Yep.
want to get back at them. But then
Yeah.
the thing that
Yeah.
makes you who you are is the most unselfish thing ever. Like, what do
Mm.
I love about you
Yep.
is what makes you who you are. And it's like, it was like, I was just like, fuck. That's so clever and so deep. Like, so
Well,
that core, yeah.
and so of course the heartbreaking thing about it
Yeah.
is that the idea is in each scene, the scene ends when one of you has become disillusioned with one of the traits that's showing. And so then you burn it. So like you have these deeply unselfish things in front of you, although they could be selfish. I will say I can kind of talk about that. But like you have these things in front of you that are about like something you deeply appreciate about the other person, or you find attractive about them, or love about being with them, and then you just keep being slowly disillusioned with them, and then you destroy them, you burn them, and they are gone.
Yeah.
They're gone
Yeah.
until there's none left, and
You
that's it. And
break their stuff. You like
yeah,
destroy it. You burn their personality. It's very it's very destructive and interesting, and just like I don't know. Do you like musical theatre at all? Like, do you
I
like
do. I love musical theater. Yeah.
Okay, so have you heard of the musical The Last 5 Years?
No, I haven't.
So the last 5 years is really interesting. I think it's great, like in reference to this game, because the last 5 years is a two-person show.
Okay.
It's a two-person show. It's a couple, but it's one that but they're never on stage together because of the fact that they're remembering their relationship in a different order. So one person is remembering it from the end to the beginning, so they're going backwards, whereas the other person is going from the beginning to the end, and that means that they only ever meet at key points on stage. And it's like, I watched the film of it. It has Anna Kendrick and Jeremy Jordan in.
Okay.
It's okay. Like,
Okay.
it's all right. Like, I the thing is, I love the idea of it, but I'm just a bit
Yeah.
because I've not seen a good version of it yet. I guess, or I've not seen it like performed, and that's the thing that's like got me interested in the concept. I feel like Broken's a bit like that as well. Like you're remembering it in a different order or in a different
Yeah.
way. So like you said and how it's portrayed in the ritual. Like, do you remember when like we went on that road trip and it's like and then but you forgot that you left me in Charlottesville.
Exactly.
You left me in Charlottesville alone for a night because we had an argument, and like it's like
Yep.
like it's that different order of things, and like
Yep.
I love these things about you, and I remember them, but eventually the memory dies, and like we can't get over it because it's been replaced with something else, like. It's all very like your core that you've created is so beautiful and so deep and lovely that I'm just like,
Thank you.
fuck, this is like, and this is one of the things I was gonna ask, but you kind of like answered that again. It's like, for this isn't your first game, but for like a second game, if you will, like because obviously you've dabbled in design before and stuff with your friends, and
Yeah.
stuff. Like this is a polished concept
Thanks.
to a professional point where I'm a bit like, is this really just like the second
Yeah.
one? Like,
And it kind of is my first game. It's like I've worked on other games that we've done through APON, and like I did the layout for the Hard Lessons, which is still in production right now. I didn't design or write that game, so this is the first game I like designed and wrote. I really appreciate. Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I will say, I guess if I were to attribute that to anything, what you just said, I would just attribute it to the fact that like I've been in the hobby for 20 some years. You know, I have a ridiculous number of hours of play under my belt of GMing and thinking about games, and I really think that just like playing lots of games and like being in the story game scene for a while now, being like playing a number of narrative games, like playing a lot of games on Pot of Love. There are two-player games and romance games, and thinking through mechanics and thinking through design elements and layout. So for this game, for Broken, the version of it that you've seen, Addison, is what I call the Ashcan Edition. It's the edition that people will get if they back the game immediately, and it's pretty close to what the final edition will be when it's done. We're going to add some safety design. There is safety in the game. We're going to increase the safety design.
Yeah.
I'm working with Bo Jager Sheldon, who is the designer of the script change safety tool set. It's a pretty famous safety tool called script change, and they're going to work with me to implement some of the script change safety tools into the game, so that, because safety is really important when you're dealing with all of these themes,
Yeah, of
obviously.
course.
Yeah, but the version, my point was that the version you see, the Ashcan Edition, I wrote that and I did all of that layout myself because I just sort of had a vision in my head for how I wanted it to appear on the page. And I had a presentation I wanted, I had a vision, and it's been in development for several years now. And I think that's part of it too, is like I've been working on it and polishing it and getting it to where it is for years. But yeah, so it's sort of like my 20 years of being in the hobby and playing games and all my experiences, and honestly being into board games and playing board games, I think kind of helped get this game to where it is, because like like I don't know, I feel like the influence of board game design helped me think through the design of this game.
Yeah.
And like I don't know how to maybe articulate it better than that, but like I love board game design as much as I love role playing game design, and I like to think about designing my games in such a way as like to use the tools of both
Yeah.
in the sort of presentation. So I think that helps with the polish also.
I do think, and now that you've mentioned the board games aspect, like there does seem to be like a board game esque thing of like there are like in RPGs there's a lot less like ritual in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
do this then this then this. There's a lot less like steps, if you were, like phases. Like I'll use TCG terms. In every turn in a card game has a phase. Like so you have your draw phase, and you
Yep.
do certain things at certain times. And I feel like that's where board games, sorry, excel, is that they have these like rituals that make the games really interesting. So there's one game like Creatures in the Night or whatever that has a lamp that you have to put down. You have to play it in the dark, and you're supposed to like try and not be in the lamplight when you put the lamp down, and you move your pieces. Like, so yeah, I felt that with Broken, that like board game ritualistic sense of things. I quite like the fact as well that like you've got the record obviously, and you've shown it for the people who
Yeah.
can see, and you've described it. But I also like the fact that if you, just for those of us who are poor and don't want to destroy all their own stuff, you've also included like cool little things like, oh, it can just be like
Oh yeah.
lollipop sticks that like you
My
work
popsicle sticks.
yeah.
I got a stack of them right here on my desk. You can tell that I'm doing a lot with the game right now because I have all my stuff in front of me. So I just have these rainbow popsicle sticks. Well, that's because like my initial. It's funny because the initial reaction of some of the people that I brought the game to play test or talk to about my design, a couple of the people were like, "Oh, you're gonna ask people to break things? No one's ever gonna want to break stuff." No one's gonna want to break their objects, and as you said, poor. Like, hey, people are poor; they don't want to break their shit, or like maybe it's not safe to break stuff. You should be worried about like what if people hurt themselves or whatever. So I got some of that pushback, and I at first was like, oh, is that really going to be how it's received? It's not how it's been received
No.
largely. But I was a little concerned about that, so I thought like, okay, here's the thing though, maybe you want to have one of the objects be your like an heirloom pocket watch, but you're not going to want to break an heirloom pocket watch. So like that's where I came up with the alternative like of the popsicle stick. So you write the object on the popsicle stick, and then you can snap the popsicle stick in half at the end of the scene. And it's just an alternative way of playing, and some people choose to play it that way. I think it's a great alternative way to play it. I've played it that way. I've enjoyed playing it that way. It actually doesn't really take away from the experience. I think that like especially like with online play, with online play I've done both. I've done collecting the objects, and I've done the popsicle sticks, and they're both really, honestly, the experience is pretty similar. There's something powerful about breaking real shit. So like like that I have that record over there forever, right? There's something about that's really special.
It's catharsis,
And
isn't it? That catharsis of that moment of like clarity in destruction that we as humans have. Like we destroy something.
Yeah.
Like, ah! Oh, like
Exactly. Yeah, there's that moment of clarity when you break it that it's broken now, right? Like you just did something that can't be undone. And you do lose a little bit of that with the Popsicle Sticks, but it's still a really great way to play the game. One of the things I love about the collecting of the objects, since you mentioned, you know, poor, whatever, jokingly. One of the things that's cool about Broken 2 is that you can play it on this meta level where, like, say you're going to play it with somebody, and part of the fun of the game can be collecting the objects. So, like, you and your play partner can, like, go to the thrift store and say, like, hey, check out this. Maybe we should buy this to break. And, you know, maybe you drop a couple of bucks and you buy some objects that you're going to break. And, yeah, okay, maybe it costs you a few bucks, but it's super fun. And if you think about that as part of playing, then there's like playing Broken is more than just sitting down at the table. It has this whole extra element. I told my parents were just at doing a yard sale in their community. And I was like, oh, look for stuff that can break while you're in the yard sale. Look around for stuff that you can break. I'm trying to collect as many things that you can break as possible. And like, so look for breakable objects for me, please.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that being dope, and like, and even you can have the object, so you can have like that alien pocket watch like in the scene, but then when it comes break time, you break the stick instead, like, so you've got it, and then you like, and yeah, it's just the thing is with Broken that I've seen is it's visceral and like, I'm not gonna say raw because of the fact that like obviously it's like it's play, it's not real, so there is like a level of like veneer in editing, but like it's so real, like in the like you get the recording device to record the whole session, you break the things, you go on this journey that is not fighting dragons and orcs and like raining down lightning on people. It's two people coming together and saying, you know what, this doesn't work anymore, or we need, or as it says, there's like an option where things can be fine. I think if you choose not to break the last thing or something like that, or like, I can't remember the rule exactly. I need to find it. I've been trying to find it. So if you've been hearing my scroll wheel, it's me like trying to find that there was this really cool thing about deciding to stay together or something like that, or healing, and like it's just so, I don't know. It's so real. I don't like. I'm finding it hard to describe. I don't understand, I guess, and this might be also because I'm autistic and these things are difficult for me. Like, I don't understand how you could capture something so perfectly in a mechanical sense as you did in this game. Like it's genuinely. Like,
well, I don't know that I have anything to say to that except for I appreciate hearing you say that, and I think that if there's any reason why I was able to capture the feeling of the experience in mechanically, it is that I have processed my own experience of divorce and breakup a lot, since we did it. I feel like that's where, for me, I say that this is my memoir. And that's kind of what I mean when I say that. What I mean is, like, this game really is my memoir of divorce. Like, I took my experience of divorce and I gamified it, and that's what this is, right? So it's every time somebody plays the game and tells a different story, using the framework that I put down for it, tells a tragic breakup story of some sort. I feel like that is adding to my memoir of my own divorce, because like everything I learned about breaking up, everything I learned about ending a relationship, everything I learned about like how you self-discovery and healing and hope and all of those things in the course of like one of the fundamental aspects of being a human being, which is ending a relationship with somebody, which everybody does, even if it's not romantic. Everybody breaks up. It's just part of life. And like everything I learned about that, I poured into making this game. And so like that's why I always tell people this game's my baby. Like, it's my baby. It means like the world to me. It's an extension of me. It's autobiographical. So I'm very emotionally invested in it for that reason. It's something I care very deeply about. So I think that's why I think I think my own experiences of divorce really are what shape that. I have spent a lot of time processing my own divorce and remarriage from a theological context, from a practical context, from a spiritual context, from a social context, from a family context, like every way imaginable. You know, some people like get divorced and walk away from it and say, okay, like I had this experience, you know, it was hurtful or it was painful, but I lived through it, I move on. Um, I think because I grew up, because I'm a religious, because I'm a priest, and because I grew up in a religious environment that was much more conservative and fundamentalist than I am now, like we didn't in quotes believe in divorce,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
growing up. It's not something we believed in. So like I never imagined I would get divorced. You know, I just never saw that as being a possibility for my life. You know, I like I said, I married my high school sweetheart. I thought this person was my soulmate. I told myself all of these things. But I'm a hopeless romantic. I talk about this in the forward of the book. I am a
yeah.
hopeless romantic. So like, I love romance. I love romance stories. I love Disney princesses. I love all of that stuff. Um, and so like I was the last person I ever thought would get divorced.
Yeah.
And so it was so disrupting to my fundamental understanding of who I was to get divorced that I had to spend so much time and energy processing that and healing from it and discovering who I was afterward. And that's where like a lot of these mechanics came from, right? Like I saw myself in relationship to my spouse. And I had to learn as a single person post divorce how to see myself as just Ben. Like, who is Ben without being in this marriage? Who am I? And so, like, the mechanic of seeing yourself in relationship to the other person, you know, grew out of that. That was me. I was the one who, like, saw myself in relationship to this person I was married to. So, yeah. So, a lot of that mechanical stuff, it just comes from me thinking too much about my own divorce and
No,
stuff.
and I appreciate that vulnerability and that like honesty. Because yeah, like I was going to talk about like romance because like obviously romance is something that is again personal, and some people don't
Yeah.
like it in their games, and it's going to have to play a game like Broken is going to rely on you having someone who you trust in a big way to be like vulnerable with in this weird like play way, um like it, and like you say, like even as a hopeless romantic you also take that like that beautiful version of romance, like the Disney princess version of romance of like forever and nothing ever goes wrong. But
Sure.
the problem is if that's your, if that's your like up, if that's like your top scale, then
Yeah.
the polar opposite is also going to be um like that intense. Like it's a basic
Yeah.
law of the universe, right? With every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. um Even both scientifically and theologically they talk about how like things come
Yeah.
around and things are one, and that means therefore there is the other. Like there is good, there is utmost good and utmost evil. So like for romance, like yeah, romance is those beautiful highs and that beautiful imagery of like meeting your soulmate. But then the other side of it is that crushing like weight of like, yo, like I don't know who I am anymore because I'm no longer with this, and like rah rah rah, and like all that like existential dread. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it's just something that I think you've nailed here. One thing I did want to talk to you about the game, and
Hmm.
there were two things. You kind of mentioned in the forward and how you're a tragic romantic, not tragic romantic, sorry, a hopeless romantic in your tragic
Yeah.
romance game. But I did also want to talk to you about like that idea of like this is a game that allows people to be vulnerable, and
Yeah.
that's quite scary.
Hmm.
And you do devote like quite a big bit at the end to like aftercare and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And like you should check in, and like you've talked about how you're using like script change. You're going to use, sorry, like
Yep.
script change safety
Hmm.
tools. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you about that in terms of like this sort of game, because
Yeah.
with that, with what I'm experienced with,
Yeah.
it's I and this sounds reductive. I understand, and I'm using this example because it's the most reductive example. But like, I don't like how you're describing that orc as like a kind of like a racist thing. We're gonna X card that, like, sort of thing. It's not. It's something that is like a fundamental thing that we have an affront to normally in safety tools. Like, I don't like how you're dealing with this. I don't like how you're dealing with this topic. But with this, like, that X card is you being emotional, like, even in, again, that acting way. So how do you think, how important do you think safety tools are to games like this, and how do we healthily incorporate safety tools into games like this when
Yeah.
you are going to be like putting yourself as a character on the line, and
Yeah.
like maybe getting a bit too emotionally involved because it is something that is so emotive and so visceral?
Yeah, so I knew that safety tools were going to be crucial to this game because of the potential for real, true vulnerability, for bleed, for I wanted people to be able to explore their own heartbreak with the game, and so if you're going to try to do that, there are people who have told me they read this game and they're terrified of it, like they absolutely could never play it. I've heard, we've done some actual play streams of the game, and have had people say as soon as we got to the part where you're making the traits, they were like, I could never, nope, I'm out. I could never play this. It's just too much for me. And so I knew there's going to be a wide spectrum of people's reactions to it from that level, from that vulnerable perspective. And it wasn't going to be for everybody. But for people who might want to try to do it, like I like to think about play as this safe space, this golden circle where you can explore all kinds of things in play that are dangerous or scary or vulnerable, and it's play, so it's okay, it's safe, like, to a certain degree. But in order to do that, it has to be a safe circle, right? Like, it really has to be. So in order to play this game in a way that was safe, it was important to me to incorporate safety tools, and the version of it that exists right now with the Ashcan, it talks about safety tools as an addendum. It introduces the X card in the text.
Yeah.
It talks about aftercare. But one of the things, so I wanted to bring Bo Sheldon, who I already mentioned, on to work with me to like really implement the safety tools, to kind of like layer them into the rules, because I actually, Bo pointed this out, and I think this is true. That X card is not going to stay in the final version of the text, because I don't think the X card is the best safety tool for this game, because I think it is very disruptive to the game play itself, right? Script change is a much more natural story flow safety tool that involves like things like setting a rating at the beginning of the game, where you kind of check in with the other person and say, like, do we want this game to be PG? Do we want it to be X? Do we want it to be, what do we want this game to be? Sort of, what do we want the rating to be? It uses tools like pause, fast forward, rewind,
Yeah.
in order to allow people to have the tools to like take certain tough things at their own speed. And so we're going to work to layer those safety tools into the rules so that they are kind of a seamless part of the mechanics of the game, and not quite as disruptive as the X card is, where the X card is maybe not. So I think the X card maybe is not the best safety tool for this particular game. I think that anything where you have the potential for a lot of bleed, because you want bleed in a game like this. That's where like a lot of the energy comes from and the excitement comes from.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. In order to do that, though, you just need some parameters to make sure that the people who are playing it are going to have a safe experience, especially because, like, once this game is out there, right, and it's for the world, and anybody can buy it and play it, or get a copy of it somehow and play it, you just don't know how people are going to use it. And you don't know how, and of course you can't, as a designer, you can't control that. Like, people could play it and ignore the safety tools. That's their choice. It's their game now. They're playing it. However, like, given the different environments people might play this in, if people play it at a con, maybe they're going to play it with someone they don't really know that well. They decide to do that. Like, I just thought a lot about how I wanted to make sure, to do as little harm as possible to like not re-traumatize or traumatize people, because breaking up can be traumatic. And what I wanted this game to be was healing. for some people, or allow people maybe to have the space where they might heal playing it. And so in order to do that, I wanted to make sure that safety was a huge part of the game. And aftercare, I think, is really, really, really crucial to this game. Like, I knew from the very beginning that it needed to have a substantial aftercare section, because people can be pretty wrecked. Like, I have played this game multiple times. I have cried at the last scene of this game. And it's actually the thing that gets me every single time isn't the breakup. It's when you play the voicemails at the end of the game and you listen to what was recorded before. After the third, for our listeners, after the third scene, you record a voicemail for the other person in character. And at the end of the game, you play them. It's the last thing that happens is you play the voicemails. And man, sometimes those voicemails can be so devastating, because the thing that you were excited about in your relationship after 3 scenes is the very, very thing that you broke up over 7 scenes later, and you didn't even do it on purpose while you're playing. It's just kind of, the game just kind of takes you there. And it can be devastating. It can be so rough. It's like, oh no. And sometimes if you're the person that left the voicemail, so you know what's on it, and you know what the other person's about to hear and what you're about to hear, it can be so devastating, because you're like, oh my gosh, like, I just remembered what I recorded. This is going to be so rough given what just happened in this breakup scene. So hence why I made sure there was a substantial aftercare section. Does that answer your question? I lost track of the question.
It did. Like, it was about, like, how important do you think aftercare is? Why do you think it's important, etc., etc. Or the safety tool aspect is that.
Yeah.
I suppose, like, we've still got a bit of time. I don't want to keep you too long. So there's my last 2 questions, or the last 2 topics I want to talk about.
Yeah.
One of them I want to talk about is what you brought up about that healing aspect of the game, and
Yeah.
like, I'm still trying to find it. Unless I made it up. Maybe I made it up because I like the hope, the kind of hope that's romantic in me. That's like, so I teach English and English literature. So like I'm like, they're like, but it's gonna be okay, right? It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, no, there is not a rule to allow you to stay together. I thought maybe you were referring to the aftercare stuff that's in there.
It might be the aftercare stuff, but maybe I've just, like, because I thought there's,
or maybe you were really hoping for a way to potentially stay together.
Like,
but no, because the game is, all games have broken ended the same way. They all end tragically. It's a strictly tragic romance game.
I'm sorry to say. Maybe the thing was that I wanted to ask you if there's a way to make that happen, but like, maybe I've messed up. I'm so sorry. Like, I've understood the game in such a good way, and then I've, like, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, which I thought was, because I thought it was like a really cool idea, but I've made it up in my head. Like, I'm like, well, it'll be a really cool idea if, like, after all this catharsis, like.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to step over your thought.
Like, there's like that one last thing that you don't break. Like, you don't break, and like you somehow, even though you've broken all those things and you've done 9 scenes where you've, like.
Oh, what you might be referring to is that in the last scene you do break a 10th object, but you kind of the last scene, the 10th scene, you remember it the same way. So you drop the ritual of remember when, but you forgot about, and you decide together exactly how you break up with the last remaining object. You do break it, so it doesn't stay unbroken. Although I kind of like that now that you say that, this idea that, like, the 10th object doesn't end up being broken. But no, you do break it, and but you don't do the ritual of the remember when, but you forgot about. You both remember the breakup the same way, and so you decide together, rather than the other scenes where you frame it with, like, a difference of memory. This, you kind of determined, okay, we're going to decide together as players, how does this relationship end? How do we break up? Where are we? What happens? And then you play through it. You play through your breakup, and then you play the voicemails back after you're done, after you've broken up. You play back the voicemails. And I did some stuff in playtesting with, like, facing away. Do you face away from each other for that? I kind of dropped all that. I don't think it was sort of too much ritual at the end. Like, it kind of stepped over the real oomph of that last scene, which is, like, it's powerful enough when you're breaking up with somebody. Like, because role playing a breakup scene could be a little tough because I've given you enough tools that by that time you get there, you have the things to say. You just played 9 scenes out. So you have some resentment, you have some frustration, you have some anger at the other person. So you've got stuff to say. I've helped you get there. So you're not just hanging out on your own trying to figure out what in the world do I say to break up with this person. You've got the tools. You've got the fuel for your fire to break up with somebody. But I wanted to, have that just like that. It has its own oomph. And then I will say though, to piggyback on your idea of like a hopeful thing at the end. When we used the original version of Broken for our podcast Pot of Love, because part of the reason why I wrote the game too was that in our story in season 2 of Pot of Love, we started our season 2 off with a couple, this one particular couple, and they were kind of like their story was crucial to the narrative of the season. We saw them meet as high school sweethearts. We saw them get engaged and get married. We saw their story sort of take shape as the season went on, and I knew that I wanted them to break up. And so, like, one of the things that happened at the end of the season is we played Broken to tell their story of their divorce. It was really gut wrenching, honestly, and we were really attached to these characters, so it was really emotional. But this is a spoiler for Pot of Love, not that anybody cares, but the last game arc of Pot of Love Season 2, we kind of got them back together. So even though they tragically broke up with Broken, we did play a different game, and we did kind of get them back together, or we left hope that they might get back together. So I would certainly encourage people, if people like TTRPG mashups, which I really love, which is where you can tell a story using multiple TTRPGs. Broken is great for that. You could play, there's a game in the Romance trilogy by Emily Care Boss, where called Breaking the Ice, which is where you play through 3 dates with somebody.
Yeah,
it's a really sweet game where you play through 3 first dates with somebody. That could be a great way of like setting up a game of Broken. So you could play Breaking the Ice, right?
Yeah.
You can make these 2 characters. Then you could play a game of Broken, and you could watch their relationship break up. And then if you wanted to, you could play a different game, and you could like get them back together or something, or explore what happens to them afterward. I love TTRPG mashups. It's like my favorite thing to do.
It's like kit bashing, when you kit bash like minis.
Yeah, exactly.
You take the good bits of what you want and you put them together and you make something like unique.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. We just did a stream a couple weeks ago where there's a game on Kickstarter right now called Alchemistresses, which is a magical girl game. Mm-hmm. It's like in the magical girl anime genre. And we did character creation for characters for that game. We just made characters for that game, right? Like 100%. They were for characters you would use for Alchemistresses. But instead of playing Alchemistresses with them, we took them and we played Broken with them. And we started over with Broken and did that. And it was so awesome. It was one of the coolest like experiences I've ever had, because like it just like mashed up these 2 games in a really fun way.
No, that does sound dope. Like I'd be like gassed to play something like that. And like I love anime and stuff like that. Like one of my favorite games ever is Mecha Hack, and because of it's basically a mecha anime RPG. Yeah. So yeah, I totally understand that. And I guess the last thing I want to talk to you about is it was like it's probably a deeper question, but we can
sure.
But so obviously this is all about romance and like what romance means to you and what you've given us your story, and how that's come about. And I think we're quite similar in the fact that unfortunately, like fortunately, sorry, like I was going to say unfortunately I can't relate to you 100% because I've not been divorced, but I've gone through my own tragedies where I thought that would be the end of my relationship and it wasn't, and I'm really grateful for that.
Wow.
My thing was just like, and you've answered what romance means to you, so like let's be a bit more thing then. Like, is there a particular like type of romance or an example of a couple or something in popular media or something that you look at and you go that that's my idea of hopeless romance.
Mm.
That's what's set me up down this path. Is there two characters who you've always like admired their relationship, etc., etc.?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I wonder if I have a good answer for that. I mean, I love rom-coms as a genre. Even
Yes.
though even though it's problematic in a lot of ways, one of my favorite Christmas movies is Love Actually. I know that it has issues people have with it. Like I get it, but for many years that was like one of my go-to Christmas movies. But to answer, is there a couple from popular media that or popular culture that I see as being like my quintessential couple? I will say, okay, all right, I've got a good answer for this, and it's sad, which you can tell I like sad stories. I love happy ending stories too. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but this one, I'm hoping the one I'm about to reference is a happy ending ultimately. But I'm pretty obsessed with the first season of Our Flag Means Death.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah.
did you watch that show?
I've not watched it, but I know it's basically
Yeah,
I'm
it's super good.
gay pirates is what I
Gay
get.
pirates,
Yeah.
gay pirates, and the Blackbeard and what's his? Oh my gosh, I was spacing on the main character's name.
It's not Kid, is it?
Steed Bonnet. That's
Yeah.
his. My wife is here now. She just walked in and reminded me. Steed Bonnet. Their relationship in that, their romance in that, their romance story, their meet cute, they're falling in love. Like we get to see it through a season. It's so beautiful and so sweet and like amazing. And so like right now, that's definitely my answer because they like one of the things I think makes it my answer is that each of them kind of realizes like they make each other the best version of themselves,
Mm.
right? Being in a relationship with each other brings out the best in the other person. And you get to see that happen in the season of the show. And just like they like it's free like they find in each other freedom, healing, the ability to be truly who themselves like in an authentic way. Like I'm going to be authentically me. I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not.
Mm.
When I'm with you, I can be authentically myself. And I love that about their story. I won't. I'll say that it was only one season. I don't know what's going to happen for them next. I don't want to spoil what happens in the first season
No, that's
any more
perfectly
than I
fine.
just did. It's there is some sadness,
Mm.
but I'm going to go with that as my answer for now. Since I can't think of a better one, I adore the story of season one of Our Flag Means Death.
I understand your thing about problematic like relationships as well because like
Yeah,
obviously as a kid who grew up on like literature, like even though I wasn't supposed to really, um like like romance novels from like classic literature like
yeah,
have issues, my guy,
yeah.
like issues. I'm just so like, but it's so lovely, like,
Yeah.
and yeah. So my probably problematic. Like I make it is my favorite novel of all time, and I make a concerted effort to read it at least once every year. Is Pride and Prejudice with Eliza Bennet and Darcy, because even though there's that satire of like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
women just want need to get married, the visual of Darcy becoming better because he
Yeah.
realizes that he's a problem. And I think one of the fundamental things about a relationship, I think one of the things that Broken kind of highlights without ever having to mention it, is compromise. Is like, you cannot be too proud and admit and be the way you are and just like do what you want, rah rah rah. But you also can't just be horrible because you don't like what that person's doing, like that prejudice. So Pride and Prejudice is
Yeah.
like seeing Darcy like do things even though he knows at some points that he will get no thanks for it, and Elizabeth doesn't care. Like it's like a nearly 100-year-old novel. I'm not gonna say
Yeah. Yeah.
spoilers. Like when he like saves their whole family from ruin because of the fact that like he's just there like holding out hope that like she's not good. She might not marry me now, but like I don't want her to be ruined when she comes to me, and for everybody to judge her, because I'll still marry her even if she's ruined. But like, you know, like she might not be able to put up with the social pressure, so I'd rather her be happy. Um, I suppose my my big one, like in modern context, is probably I'm gonna well, this might be a bit controversial as well. I'm gonna say like Rogue and Gambit from X-Men.
Okay.
Because of the fact that like being so in love with someone and like knowing, like Gambit knows for like most his time that like Rogue is like the perfect woman for him, and they're both charming in their own ways. Like Gambit's obviously got his sexy Cajun accent and six pack from hell. Rogue's got her southern like drawl, and like she's confident and but the fact that they can't be like intimate with each other, so like he'll take anything. He'll take like a word or like any time he can spend with her is like really sweet, and at times like really is like really it's like really sweet. And then like they obviously had, I don't know how into comics you are, but like they had that cool series where they got married, and like and that was like really funny because like it was like their superhero shenanigans but like trying to live a normal life. It was kind of like what WandaVision wanted to be, because they got stuck in the Mojo verse. So like yeah, they're the Mr. and Mrs. X. It was really good and it was just really funny. So they're like my modern, but like my OG like OTP is Eliza Bennett and Mr. Darcy. I know they get together, but like oh my god, like that is
So you might be interested. I'm going to break this here on your show, and what people may, I don't know when this will get released, so maybe it will be broke. Maybe it'll be the info will be. I don't mean to make a pun by saying broken, but maybe this will get broken a different way before this comes out. But one of the stretch goals, I won't say too many. I can't say too many details about it yet because it's not locked in yet. But we're working on, for like stretch goals for the itch funding campaign, we're working on scenarios. So like scenarios will be pre-generated like situations for you to play the game. So like you just can play the two characters are already made for you, who they are, where they met, what your objects are you collect, what the traits are. Instead of making them up yourself, you can just play this pre-generated scenario written by a game designer. And one of the ones that we're working on is a superhero scenario. So
that's it. Part of many things exclusive. I'll take that. I'll take that. Like, but
so I won't say anything else about it because I have to lock down the game designer. But the person who, if it works out, the person who's going to write the scenario is somebody who writes in comics and in the comic industry. So I hope it'll work out. That this person will be able to will do it. But so I'll just tease that here.
I do you just to make you fully aware that if it's like someone insane, I'm going to go crazy. Like if I, it's
not someone too insane. It's I wish maybe if we do maybe if this itch funding is very very successful, and then we do a deluxe print run later, I'll be able to get an even bigger name person to write a scenario for it. But it's no one. I wouldn't get your hopes up too much. It's someone really great. I think will do a fabulous job for it.
If I know their work, like whether they're big or like people's work speaks for itself, doesn't it? Like, you know.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
But yeah, definitely. Ben, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hand over to you for a bit so you can like plug your stuff before we outro and stuff. And yeah, Ben, take it away. Tell us who you are, what you're up to, what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, so the main thing is everyone should go check out our itch funding for Broken. If you want to purchase the game or support our finishing the game, making it a reality that we just spent all this time talking about, you can go to itch.io. It's apongames.itch.io/broken, or search for Broken on itch.io, where we're crowdfunding, itch funding the game Broken there. You can, if you want to like read about it a little bit, I forgot to prep my link so I could really plug it professionally here. I have a bit.ly link for Broken, but do I remember what it is? Let's see. Broken. No, I might not. Let's see. No, I don't remember what it is. Well,
you can just links and I'll put them in the description.
There you go. Yeah, but you can go to apongames.itch.io/broken, or search for Broken on itch.io, or search for Apon Games on itch.io, and you will find Broken there. You can also find me on Twitter. I am I am Benjamin at Benjamin Wallace, spelled Wallis. That's at Benjamin Wallace on Twitter. You can also sign up, people. There is a an email list to learn more about the game Broken and like follow updates. It's sort of my development blog in email form, and people can sign up for that by going to buttondown.email/thatgamerpriest. So yeah, I'm also on Twitch as ThatGamerPriest. Um, and yeah, I mean, I have a what is it called? A link tree. And it does have like links to everything. So in some ways, that might be the best place for people to like find all the things I've talked about on the show or all the things I do, and that would be Linktree / that gamer priest, and that's linktr.ee. That's how you spell Linktree. It's linktr.ee / that gamer priest. So yeah, so that is that's me and what I'm doing.
Thank you, Ben, for coming. It's been a real
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me.
Hopefully we
Yeah,
can hang out some more because I'd fucking love that. Not gonna lie.
awesome. I would
Um,
love that too.
and yeah, as you know, I'm Addison. I'm your favourite friendly furball who hangs around the internet. You find me on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. In July, we are hopefully going to be streaming for SANS, the Stillbirth and Neonatal Charity, Deaf Charity, in remembrance of not just my son, whose birthday is soon, who you can look at the podcast I did with my wife to learn our story about our journey through loss and stuff like that. We're going to hopefully raise money for SANS in Gaming for Good, where I stream, and I've set up my game at the minute that we're probably going to do like a 4-part mini-series to, is Ultraman Legion, powered by Absolute Tabletops, the Mecha Hack, where we're going to take the Netflix anime Ultraman and make our own Ultramen and go fight aliens. So that is hopefully going to be dope. But yeah, you can get all the links down below. Ben's going to make sure that everything's in the description. And to sign off, as always, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, I hope you're safe, I hope you're well, and in the spirit of today's episode, I hope you're being loved by someone in a way that you deserve. Thank you very much. Goodbye.